Hello, everyone, and welcome to RSG's second quarter production for financial wellness. This is for all of our participants. We have over 17,000 nationwide to just give you some valuable information in regards to tax strategies for your retirement. I'm Kevin Delaney. I'll be serving as your moderator today. So in a second, you won't see my face anymore. I'll go ahead and hand it off to the ladies that will be presenting today. But I did just want to remind everyone, all you attendees, you'll notice the menu bar that you have for the GoToWebinar under both the questions area as well as the chat box. You can go ahead and ask any questions that you may want the group to address at the end, and we'll go ahead and go over those questions here for you at the end of today's webinar. But I wanted to thank you for your time and welcome you to today's webinar. And with that, I will hand it off to Elvia Sanchez, partner with Retirement Solution Group.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning. Like Kevin said, I'm Elvia Sanchez, and welcome to Retirement Solution Group's Financial Wellness Webinar. We're happy that you can attend. We have now over 17,000 employees all over the United States that we service, so these webinars come in very handy in reaching out and touching base with all of you. As part of our quarterly education outreach, we bring information you can build your financial knowledge base off of. The hope is to always leave you with some tidbits that with time, so that when the time comes, you can make an informed decision on the next steps you need to take. Today, we're joined by Rise, a partner that shares our core beliefs and values in assisting participants reach their current and future financial goals. Nothing has or will change with the service RSG provides to you. As a value add to complement the service you are already receiving from us, we have brought on Rise to assist with some of your wealth management needs that participants have requested, such as estate planning, trust, etc. So please let me introduce Shanna Deshays and Sonia Hicks, whom will be speaking a little bit more on Rise and tax optimization to and through retirement. Shanna?
Great, thank you so much. So I'm not seeing the presentation. Is anybody else seeing it?
Yep, bear with me. I'll get that pulled up here. It's just giving me a little bit of a pullback. Hold on a moment. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, no, just got to get this PowerPoint pulled up. Bear with me for a moment.
Sure. Well, while that's getting pulled up, thank you guys so much for joining today. As Elvia said, we are happy to be partnering with RSG and bringing some financial education, and especially happy to be talking about some tax strategies today. So while that's getting pulled up, I'll just share a little bit more about what we're going to be chatting about today. So during today's session, Sonia and I will be providing just some insights into tax planning. So more specifically, how you can set yourself up now to improve your tax situation in retirement. So we'll share several different investment and financial options for you guys to be considering from the perspective of tax planning specifically. So like everything with investments, it's beneficial to be considering each strategy based on your own personal situation and financial goals. So some of the stuff that we chat about may be applicable to you, but it may not. So a lot of what we chat about is really to get you thinking a little bit differently, but really to bring that back to your financial advisor so that you can make sure that you're getting set in a tax-wise way as you're heading into retirement. All right, so I am seeing the slides now. Yeah, and if you just want to go to the next slide. So I'll share a little bit more about Sonia and I and our team at Rise before we head into the actual material. So we are Rise Private Wealth Management. We're an office of Ameriprise, and our team's mission is financial advice that brings you confidence, simplicity, and success. So simply put, we try to take the complex world of finances and make it very simple so that individuals can make informed decisions, just like RSG brings to the table, bringing some education to make sure that each of you as participants are making educated decisions as it relates to your finances and retirement plan. The vision for our company is to be the most referred and recognized wealth management practice in the industry with a strong community presence. which speaks to, us being on today's seminar. We're just really trying to get out into the community and sharing education that maybe you aren't getting otherwise. Next slide. So today, Sonia and I will be discussing 3 different important areas of tax planning for retirement. So first, we'll take a look at possible sources of retirement income and how you can harness your assets from multiple different sources for tax planning and with tax planning in mind as you're preparing to make that transition. Next, we'll provide a little bit of a closer look at what we refer to as the tax control triangle. So this is really just a helpful visual that illustrates 3 different tax categories that your retirement income and investments may include. And it'll also help with your tax diversification and tax planning needs now ahead of getting to that retirement transition. And then lastly, Sonia will take a deep dive into some of the tax strategies that you can actually implement now before you get to retirement to help to ensure that you're in a better tax position as you're making that transition. So first, we will kick it off with some retirement income. So as you're starting to plan for retirement, it's great to get ahead of understanding what your retirement income will look like. So things that you'll consider as you're thinking through what does retirement income need to look like is deciding what your retirement age is going to be, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about retiring early, retiring later, and what that will mean for the overall landscape of your income profile. Understanding retirement assets. Oh, if you just want to go back, understanding your retirement assets, income sources, and related taxes based on where those assets land, and then also preparing for unexpected events and how all of this ties into the consideration of retirement income. So what age can I retire? A lot of folks come to us and maybe have thought a little bit about it, but really haven't given the true thought and game plan behind what age they want to retire. So there are many considerations when determining the right age, but really starting to plan now for the age that you feel would be most appropriate given your certain situation. So if your plan is to retire early, of course, retiring early is going to ensure that you have a longer timeline to be able to really live out those goals that you have for retirement. But what it also means is you have to get saving a little bit heavier earlier on so that you build that nest egg, because you'll have that longer timeline where you are in drawdown rather than accumulation. Additionally, things to consider is, how are you going to cover your healthcare costs? So Medicare eligibility age is 65. So if you're retiring before then, you'll have to consider private medical and what that will cost you. So making sure that that's built into the plan. And then even at age 65, you're Medicare eligible, but thereafter, you typically still need a supplemental plan. So making sure that you're planning for those expenses. But if you're really targeting, I'm going to work until 65 or later, what you're ultimately doing is you're allowing yourself that longer timeline to be able to have those years of earned income where you're able to contribute more to the 401k, build up that retirement nest egg, so that you can then enjoy that larger nest egg for those retirement years. So yes, you're missing out on some of the additional years that you would be able to enjoy retirement by retiring around 55, but you've now been able to grow that bucket through accumulation rather than drawdown. So things that you'll also want to consider is everyone's scenario is very different, but for you specifically, it's thinking through, okay, leading up to retirement, you have income sources like your salary, maybe a spouse's salary, and maybe even some investments and passive income. But getting to retirement, it's good for you to understand ahead of time, what are your retirement income sources, right? So there's a variety of different sources that you might have. We have some illustrated here on the screen. And the great news is if you have money coming from multiple different sources, it just allows you to have a well-diversified retirement income strategy, meaning maybe you're not relying solely on Social Security and a little bit of 401k. If you do have rental properties or business income coming in, you're able to manipulate what your retirement income paycheck looks like. And it also gives you the additional opportunity to be able to address your tax bill based on your terms, right? Drawing from certain buckets rather than only having one source to choose from. Now, one consideration is if you do have Social Security on the table and on your radar is, well, when are you even planning on turning it on? So a lot of folks will think, oh, there's just that, my full retirement age, which, by the way, is different for everyone. It's based on the year in which you were born. So things to think about when it comes to Social Security is, am I going to turn it on early if I retire early? Am I going to delay to get a better benefit? So my full retirement age, in this scenario, you're seeing an individual that their full retirement age is 67. That's where they get their true full benefit. However, you can also choose to delay. And so you can delay up until age 70 where your benefit will continue to grow. And of course, everyone's situation is very different. So things that we encourage our clients to think about and we help them to make these decisions is, are there health factors that we should be considering? Is there longevity in the bloodline where maybe delaying to get the most benefit as possible makes sense? And then also it's situational. If the income is absolutely needed, you're going to turn that on as soon as that income is needed. But definitely a few things to be considering, but good for you to be aware that this is something that should be drawn into the financial plan so that you can count on this income and maybe not as early as 62, but plan for even age 70. You have some choices there. Now, planning for expenses in retirement, oftentimes we have individuals who think, I'm going to show up to retirement and be spending less. But the goal is not necessarily we're building up all of our retirement buckets to get to retirement and decrease lifestyle. Ultimately, it's important for you to understand what's my desired lifestyle. Do I want to maintain my current lifestyle where really I'm not decreasing, but I'm just living the same lifestyle that I'm enjoying today? Or do I want to enhance lifestyle? So am I including additional travel? Are there additional hobbies that I'll be doing with more of my free time? Is it, gifting to loved ones or, maybe it's snowbirding, throughout the year. So really understanding what are my expenses going to look like when I get to retirement if I'm living the truly desired lifestyle that I want to live. Other items to consider when it comes to expenses in retirement is life expectancy. We're finding more and more retirees are running out of money because they didn't plan to live as long. So longevity is something to be considering. Inflation, so assuming that what you're paying today for, simple activities, and assuming that those are going to be the same in the future is not wise. So making sure that you're building inflation into your scenario. Expenses just continuously go up, so plan for that. And then also planning for healthcare costs. Being one of the largest line items we see for retirees, it's super important to make sure that additional expenses for medical and retirement are assumed. All right, so something else that's important that is often overlooked is, well, what if there are unexpected events that impact my retirement income? So this is a scenario where it shows you the S&P 500 returns over the last 20 years. Of course, this is based on 2023 data. But what this is showing is if individuals are out of the market during times of volatility, making emotional decisions, oftentimes true returns happen very closely to when we are at the bottom of the market. By making emotional decisions, you'll see here that individuals, by being out, even just a short period of time out of the market, are really missing out on some of that upside. So what this speaks to is really understanding what is your lifestyle going to cost you so that you always have the income that you're going to need set aside, while being able to leave the other portion of your retirement assets invested to be working for you. So that you're never going to the bucket of money that you don't necessarily need, allowing that to be invested, but having the right amount of income kind of set aside. Now, when it comes to retirement income planning, you also have decisions to make at certain ages, right? That can impact your retirement income and your taxes. So these milestones that are illustrated on the slide kind of speak to that. you'll see that there are many specific ages when contributing to and withdrawing from retirement accounts is key. Also, of course, as we discussed, when to turn on Social Security. So Sonia will actually be taking a little bit more of a deep dive into the first portion of this timeline, so those pre-retirement years. All right, so next we will chat about the tax control triangle. So to understand how taxes impact retirement income, we often illustrate this tax control triangle for our clients. And we do this quite frequently as a reminder, but this is really a great illustration for all of you to kind of take back so that you can understand, what does my tax control triangle look like? Now, the importance of having a well-diversified tax strategy is that you have more control over your financial picture. You can help to extend the life of your assets while also giving you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to accessing retirement income. And I'll give you a few examples of which assets would land in each of these buckets. Now, these triangles, every time you save a single dollar, it's landing in one of these triangles. The difference between the triangles is simply how those dollars are taxed on the way in and how they're taxed on the way out. So we'll focus on the tax deferred triangle first. So these are dollars that are going in on a pre-tax basis. So if you're simply just saving into the 401k on a pre-tax basis, that is where this account would live. This would also include if you have any traditional IRAs that you're getting a deduction for contributing to. Now, those accounts funded on a pre-tax basis and benefit from tax deferred growth. But when you get to retirement, every dollar that you draw down from that account is going to be fully taxable. So the dollars that went in and all of the growth fully taxable at the rate that you're at that point in time that you distribute. So we don't know what taxes look like, come retirement, but we can only assume that we're seeing the brackets increase over time. So good to note there that yes, you're benefiting from the Feel Good Today, a tax benefit, but really we're facing that tax bill later on in retirement if that's the way that you're saving. Then we have the taxable, which is the savings account, the checking account. So dollars going in on an after-tax basis, they are taxable on the way out if you have earnings. And then we have this top bucket, the tax-free bucket. So this is something for each of you to consider is if you have a Roth 401k available, that is where these dollars would live. So you're funding the account on an after-tax basis, but when you get to retirement, all of those contributions and all of the growth, as long as it's 59.5 or older, you can access this account completely tax-free. So really kind of taking a snapshot of your assets and where they live today and kind of filling in where do they live in this tax control triangle will help you to make sure, am I diversified from a tax standpoint? And if not, are there things that I can do now to better diversify me in the future? Okay, and then anticipating your tax bracket. So of course, Sonia's going to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies that we can do, but one thing to think about is, should I be doing a Roth conversion? So thinking about the pros and cons of converting traditional IRA dollars to a Roth IRA, which Sonia will take a deep dive into. As I just chatted, that tax deferred bucket, maximizing a pre-tax contribution, maybe that makes sense, but maybe going ahead and considering the Roth option makes the most sense for your scenario. And then considering if you expect to be in a lower tax bracket or a higher tax bracket in retirement. A lot of people just assume that they'll be in the lower tax bracket, but if your tax control triangle looks very overweight on the pre-tax side, it's likely that your drawdown is completely taxable and you might be in a higher tax bracket or a very similar one. So definitely taking some time to anticipate what would my tax bracket look like in retirement, especially where we do see tax brackets increasing just as soon as January 2026. So next, we will pass it over to Sonia.
Thank you, Shanna. So lastly, let's dive into some tax strategies that you can implement actually before you retire. So the impact of taxes is actually a really common question that Shanna and our team deals with on a regular basis. There's a lot of decisions and variables that can actually impact what your retirement income looks like, which Shanna alluded earlier with longevity. A lot of times people aren't planning to live as long, so the need to actually plan farther out actually is a very important piece of what we do in planning for that retirement income. So this is that decision timeline that Shanna had showed earlier, and we're going to dive into kind of these 3 key points. At 50, you can actually start making more contributions to your retirement accounts, either through work or individual accounts, than you can prior to age 50. So those are called catch-up contributions. At 55, you can start making penalty-free withdrawals from your 401ks as long as you left your employer the year you turned 55 or later. Not a lot of people know that little fact, so that's one we'll talk about. And then at 59 and a half, in-service rollovers are sometimes allowed from your company 401k. And you can also at 59 and a half start making what's called penalty-free withdrawals from retirement accounts. So we'll look at some of these tax strategies at these different decision points. Okay, so the last one we just looked at, catch-up contributions. This is again where anybody over age 50 can actually contribute more into their traditional IRAs and 401ks. And remember, Shanna had talked about that tax control triangle. The traditional IRA and the traditional 401k, that was that tax deferred side. So you can add more to those. And then the Roth IRA and the Roth 401k, that was that top triangle that Shanna showed with the tax-free pieces. So here, this slide just illustrates anybody that's not 50, they can add $23,000 to their 401k or $7,000 to their IRA, their individual retirement account. But here in 2024, if you turn 50 this year or you're older than 50, you can actually add another $7,500 to your 401k. So you could get in a total of $30,500 into your 401k account, or add an extra $1,000 to your individual retirement account, making it $8,000. So this slide is simply showing you the light blue is what people can contribute not being 50. And the darker blue circles go ahead and show you the additional amounts that you can add to retirement plans once you're 50 or older. One piece to keep in mind here is that there was something called the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed in December of 2022, and that may allow in 2025 may allow people 60 to 63 to make even higher catch-up contributions. So we're still very much in tune with Secure Act, what's to come in the next coming years, but there may be even higher catch-up contributions in the near future to pay close attention to. And then Shanna also kind of talked about, deciding what tax bracket you're in now and later. But as part of that planning strategy, it may work really well to add these catch-up contributions to a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA, right? If you're doing everything and doing the tax deferred into your 401k or into your IRA, maybe you want to take that piece, that window that has now opened for you to add more into retirement accounts and add your catch-up contributions to Roth 401k or Roth IRAs to help diversify your tax bucket and what you're going to have for retirement. Another tax strategy which may help you during this time is what's called converting traditional IRAs to Roth IRA. So this slide will show kind of that side-by-side comparison of the two. This strategy is really helpful if you're no longer in your peak earning years. Roth conversions can be useful also in your first couple years of retirement. Many people will convert some of their IRAs into Roth IRAs just to begin diversifying a portion and have that tax-free bucket begin to grow for them for retirement. At the time of conversion, you'll want to make sure that you do have enough to pay the tax, because remember, if we take money out of a tax deferred account, even if we're putting it into a tax-free, we still have to pay that tax on whatever we take out. So if we do a conversion, we're going to want to make sure that we have the funds to pay for the tax that's going to come along with doing that strategy. You'll also kind of want to compare what your tax bracket is now versus what it's projected to be. Of course, you know, nobody knows, nobody has the crystal ball on what taxes or legislation will look like. But in 2018, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act significantly cut individual tax rates, which is the environment we're in today. But those tax cuts are actually set to expire at the end of 2025. So the end of next year, our brackets will then go back into pre-2018 rates, which were higher than they are today. So if you want to consider a Roth IRA conversion, it may be important or may be beneficial to go ahead and look at that for this year and next year before those tax rates likely rise on us. The other thing to keep in mind when you're considering a Roth IRA conversion is how much time do you have to let that tax-free money work for you, right? If you're going to convert it and then want to use it in the following year, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you convert it and you have maybe 10 or 15 years to let that money in a tax-free account actually sit and grow and be invested for you to continue to accumulate, you'll have plenty of time then that can build up and actually turn into a bigger portion of your retirement income that you can use then tax-free. One more thing to keep in mind, just after-tax contributions, if anyone's putting after-tax contributions into their 401k, or if anyone is maybe making a non-deductible IRA contributions, those can make really good sense to go ahead and convert those contributions into a Roth, because for those different contributions, you've actually already paid the tax, so you can just go ahead and convert them and let them begin to save and build for you in that tax-free bucket. It may not be as beneficial for people who have a substantial amount of savings in traditional IRAs, but if that didn't exist, it may be something that you really want to consider with those after-tax or non-deductible contributions. So if that's something that anybody's interested in, we'd be happy to help you walk through that in your own situation and see if a conversion is right for you. Okay, the next topic we want to talk about is in-service distributions. And this actually means that you don't have to keep all of your retirement assets in your retirement or employer-sponsored plan. In-service distributions can actually play a really important role in your income strategy for retirement. So an in-service distribution actually allows you to take your money out of your employer plan and roll it to a traditional IRA or an individual retirement account after you're 59 and a half, even while you're still working. Okay, you're still part of the plan, you're still working, you'll still contribute and add and get your match, but it allows you to take those investments and actually put them into different investments and diversify your actual investment holdings. This can be really, really beneficial for people who don't have very many choices, and I'm talking investment choices within their 401k plans. It allows you to kind of open that investment menu for you, just because now within an individual retirement account, you have investment options galore, right? You're not limited to just what your employer has as your selections. And also people who maybe have a large amount of company stock, that doing an in-service distribution can actually allow them to diversify some of those holdings and mitigate some of the volatility that might exist with too much into a company stock position. So it can help diversify, it can help you plan for that retirement income, and then you may even be able to, or make sense to convert some of that, as we just talked about prior, take some of that money in your individual retirement account and convert it to a Roth IRA. And of course, you'd pay the taxes at that time, but gives you a little bit more control than what's actually specified in your 401k within the company. Sometimes there's reasons to leave it there too. So I'm not suggesting that everyone has to do that. Again, like Shanna illustrated, it really, really depends on your personal situation, what that looks like, what our timeline is, and what we're planning for. But we can always help you sort through the pros and cons of does or would it make sense to look at an in-service distribution given your individual situation. In your pre-retirement years, there are some strategic investment and financial decisions that actually can impact your income and your tax situation. So some of those important choices are listed here on this slide. And so we're going to go through each of these, but let's start with deferred compensation. Many of employers actually offer deferred compensation, and that can be both qualified or non-qualified. Sometimes that's in the form of pensions or other employee stock options. But before you retire, it's important for you to consider how you're going to manage that deferred compensation and what those tax consequences of those future payouts might be. The compensation you defer traditionally reduces how much income taxes you pay today, but you're going to defer that and pay that later. So when those funds are withdrawn, you'll pay the tax due at that time. Usually you must elect a payout plan when you elect the deferred compensation. So you've got to be really, really mindful about what your current tax bracket is and what your future tax bracket might be, just so that you can make that election make sense for you. This strategy of deferred compensation, it actually works really, really well if you're in a higher tax bracket now when you're wanting to defer it, and you anticipate being in a much lower bracket when withdrawals are actually made. In that case, you'll likely pay a lot less in taxes than you would have if you would go ahead and receive all of that money today in a higher tax bracket. One thing to keep in mind is that state income taxes for deferred compensation can actually be pretty complex if you move to another state. So if you retire and move to a low tax or a no tax state, sometimes your compensation will actually be taxed in the state where it was earned, not where you're living when it pays out. So just keep that in mind if deferred compensation is something that you're looking into or a part of. And also just keep in mind that a financial advisor or a tax professional can always help you navigate those decisions with deferred compensation. So next we're going to look at some tax exempt securities and some health savings accounts. So both of these items can help you build a tax diversified retirement portfolio. So Kevin, will you just go to the next slide for me? Keep going, one more. There you go. That's the one I want. So there are some investments that you don't have to pay taxes on the earnings or the gains. And one of those examples is municipal bonds. So you don't have to pay the interest or the dividends off of municipal bonds from the federal tax side. Sometimes you can also actually get away from paying any state taxes if that bond was issued in the state that you live in. However, you do probably most likely have to pay federal and state taxes on any gains from when you sell it. But it's one investment that you may want to learn more about just to begin to build a tax diversified portfolio. Another common and increasingly popular vehicle is a health savings account or an HSA. So if you're enrolled in a high deductible health plan, it's really important to consider contributing to an HSA. Contributions that you make are tax deductible. It'll grow tax-free, and importantly, it's also tax-free when you take the money out of an HSA, as long as you use it for qualified medical expenses. And I don't know about you guys, but I have never seen a client that can't use all the HSA money for medical expenses in the future. So they can be an excellent way to help a tax diversification tool, but then also help manage those healthcare costs before and actually during retirement. So lastly, I'm going to talk about life insurance and annuities here for a minute. Understanding how these work can really help in your tax planning picture. So as long as premiums are paid on time, a permanent life insurance policy is going to provide you coverage until you pass away. It also, in many cases, will build cash value for you. So withdrawals from that cash value are generally tax-free up to the amount that you've paid in premiums. So not every policy has this favorable tax treatment, so it's important that you know and are familiar with what you've got. Annuities are a long-term insurance product that can provide guaranteed income for you. So they can be an important part of your retirement income because you can plan the amount of money that you'll receive each month from that annuity. Very, very few retirement accounts are that predictable. With annuities, you'll make contributions either through regular premiums or maybe a lump sum, and then after a period of time, you can actually elect if you want to receive that income monthly, quarterly, or annually, just depending on the contract. With most, they pay in pre-tax dollars, and the earnings are going to grow tax deferred. So this means you will pay taxes on the distributions, and you can purchase an annuity in a Roth, but there isn't an extra tax benefit to do that. Same within a retirement plan, not necessarily any benefit to doing that. A non-qualified annuity, though, generally you're going to fund that with after-tax dollars. So when you start receiving those distributions, you'll owe taxes, but only on the earnings, so only on the growth that it's achieved. However, those earnings, that growth comes out first unless you annuitize the contract. So we can help you look at life insurance, add annuities, and determine which, if any, might be appropriate for you and your retirement income. So throughout this presentation, we've highlighted how important it is to plan for the retirement income actually before you retire. By looking at the retirement income and the tax planning together, you can develop a strategy to help you meet your specific retirement goals. Early planning is the best strategy to help you ensure that you'll have the income you need. While your own timeline might look different from what we've discussed here, it's really important to remember those 3 milestones that we talked about ahead of time, just to make sure you can be aware of key decisions, what age you'll retire, how much you'll need, and what your retirement income might look like. You can see here how closely retirement savings and tax planning go hand in hand actually when it comes to tax diversifications. So together we can carefully consider all of these factors and account for the income that you need to support a long and more confident retirement. So planning for taxes is an ongoing process that changes as your life, as legislation, as the laws change. And Shannon or I, our information's up here on the screen. Anyone on this call live or possibly listening to a replay has access to a complimentary initial consultation with either of us. We'd be more than happy to meet with anyone who might either have questions or might want to review their specific tax strategies or even retirement income. And if you already have an advisor, I would encourage you to just schedule a meeting with them just to go through these items that we talked about today, specifically related to income tax for retirement and tax planning strategies that might be beneficial for you.
I'm not hearing you, Elvia.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon and Sonia, for all that great information. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. For everybody on this call, please feel free to reach out with any questions. Kevin and I are happy to go over your needs and assist with the next steps. So again, RSG is still here for you. We could be, obviously, we're always your point of contact. If you have any questions, reach out, and then we could guide you on what those next steps can or should be for you. Our next webinar will be on May 14th. It's going to be on strategic wealth management and successfully investing. Please register ahead of time by going onto the QR code you see in front of you. I will now pass this on to Kevin. I know that your guys' time is very important. And we're going to try to cut this here short, as we know we're over time. But Kevin, did we have any questions on the chat box?
Yeah, first, great job, ladies. I thought that was fantastic information for anybody who's thinking about retirement or just how they should go about their income in retirement. Some great strategies posed today. So thank you all for your time. We do have a couple of questions, Elvia. So I'm just going to direct it. It looks like just two. So we'll get everybody going here in a minute. But I do have one here that came in. It just says, I arrived to the webinar a little bit late. I've seen Elvia before. I have not seen Sonia and Shanna before. Is RSG still our 401k advisor? So I'll leave that one for you, Elvia.
Great. Yes, we are your 401k advisor. There has been no change to the service we provide either to the plan sponsors or to the participants. Again, we are your point of contact. If it's me that you've always reached out to, or Kevin, or any other RM on RSG's team, that could be Chris, that could be Judy, that could be Christy, please continue to reach out. Again, we brought RISE in as an add-on value to complement what Retirement Solution Group already provides for all of you. And it was brought on just because of questions that people have. I need assistance with, estate planning. I don't know how I should divide this up, who I should contact, how do I put a trust in place? So obviously we all here are specialists in an area, and I am a retirement specialist. That is my niche. When there is a lot of taxation variables, sometimes that gets a little bit complicated, and we definitely do not want to guide people in the wrong direction. So we brought on RISE to assist, to complement. So that's why I'd say, come over to Kevin, come over to me, come over, reach out to one of your RMs, and then you can strategize and see what the next steps is. Do we want to get RISE involved? Do you have an outside advisor that you work with that maybe those are the next steps over there? Right. So again, no change to RSG. I am still here for you. Kevin is still here for you, and definitely not leaving any of you in any way, shape, or form.
Great. Thank you, Elvia. And then we did have one other question that popped up here. It just said, if we liked any of the information today or wanted any future financial wellness initiatives delivered at my place of business, would RISE be able to help us do that? And who should I contact, Elvia?
So we are bringing this to our trustee meetings and putting this in the face of our plan sponsors. If plan sponsors see that it's going to be, there's a need, a want, or participants here go to their plan sponsors and say, you know what, I saw this piece, thought it would be great. Again, contact the RM on your plan. That again could be Kevin, Christy, Chris, Judy, or I, and we can work that out and put that in play. Especially if there's a particular topic you want to hear about, we definitely want to make that a resource for you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I can't thank you all enough for your time. I thought today's production was fantastic. Sonia, Shanna, thank you so much for joining us today. And Elvia, thank you for the thoughtful fruition of this webinar. I love the topic, and I think it's fantastic for our participants to hear about how to go about their retirement strategy.
Thank you for having us.
So much. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Have a great day, everyone.